Okay, so this is a video explaining how this little generic CRUD data storage and retrieval app works. It's written in Rebol. We start out with a variable assignment here. We're creating a variable labeled f, and we're setting it to value no. No is like false, just a little simpler way of writing it, faster way of writing it. And true is the same as yes. We're going to use that variable later as a flag to check whether or not a record in this little database system has been altered by the user. Then we have a little block of actions labeled n, and so what that does is it clears the fields of the GUI, of the thing we've labeled GUI, which is the user interface, and in that GUI there's an area labeled A, and we set that text to none, and then we show the GUI, we show those changes, and we focus on the there's a field labeled F1, and we set that flag variable to no. What all of this code labeled N does is it creates a new record entry form by clearing the fields and focusing in, especially setting that flag to no. That means that the no variable means that the data in that record hasn't been loaded. Okay, then we have a little block of code labeled X, and what this is going to do is save the data that we're currently working on or editing in the user interface to a file. So we're going to write to this file, which we call D. The percent sign is the symbol in Rebol it's used to represent files, and it's a single character, and we're appending to that file. And what we're appending to that file is this reduced bit of data, and the mold function puts quotes around each of these items. So we're taking the data from the F1 field and the F2 field and the A text area. So together, all those actions save the data that's currently in the form on the user screen. The Y field loads an existing record into the form. You can see that's all wrapped in an attempt function, which just gracefully handles any errors, moves on if there are errors. So I'm going to start at the middle of this whole list of actions here, and we're going to start by loading from that D file, and we're going to take the data that's loaded and label it D, and then what we're going to do with that loaded data is we're going to find in that loaded data some item that's selected or requested by the user. And what's going to be requested is a list of data which is extracted from D, and basically we're extracting every 3 items from the saved items in that file. So for example, in this we have like a name and a phone and a notes field in each record. So we're going through each of those 3 items, every 3 items in the file, and extracting just every 3rd item, so the name basically. So this little request list is going to put up a list that the user can request an item from, and in that request list will be the names that are in the data file, and we're going to find within the loaded data file the name which is selected by the user, and then we're going to copy just a part of that, 3 items, first 3 items at the location where it's found. So we're going to copy the 3 items that make up the record, and we're going to save that to a label R. And then when all that's done, so this basically lets us open and get a record labeled R, and then we're going to set the F1 field's text to the first item in R, the F2's text to the second item in R, and the area is text, the third item. So basically, we put the name in F1, the phone in F2, and the text of the notes into the area, the R3. Then we show the user interface, and here we're setting the F flag to yes, because we need to use that F flag to tell if a record has been modified as opposed to being newly entered. So when we load a file from the hard drive, we're setting that flag, basically saying that's a dirty file. We've already created that file, and it's just being modified. Okay, then we create another block, a Z block, and what the Z block is going to do is delete a record. So again, if we sort of look at the middle of this code, we can work from the middle out. And again, we're loading that D file, assigning the label D to the data that's loaded. And then in it, we're finding whatever is in the name field, the F1 text, field 1's text. And then we're removing 3 items in that data. So the remove part removes 3 items from wherever that data is found. So basically the entire record, the name, the phone number, and the notes are removed from that part of the record. And that altered series, which has the 3 items removed, is then saved back to the file D. And we're using the head here, so we're making sure we save the entire series, the whole database, back to the file D. When that's all done, then we're doing the N block of code, which clears the screen and lets us enter a new record. So that whole block of code N is then included basically in the Z block. And next we create the GUI. We label this layout GUI GUI, and inside that layout we have a field labeled F1 with the text name in it by default. We have another field labeled F2 with the text phone included in it by default, and then we have an area, text area, with the text notes included in it by default. And each of those 3 things by default in Rebol's vid dialect, each of these components, each of these controls we call styles. Each of these little widgets is placed vertically. So you have a field, then below that you have a phone field, and then you have the area field below that. The crossword lets everything be aligned from left to right. So from left to right now we have a bunch of buttons. We have a button with the text new on it, and when that button is pressed, it does this N block of code. So basically it clears the screen, does that whole thing, and sets the flag to no, showing that the current data has not been edited. And then we have a button labeled save, and you can see here save button has to do a little more work. First thing we do is we use the that X block of code to write the data to the file. And if you think about it, when you're editing and you press the save button, there are a couple options. If you've created a new record, you just want to save that to the data file and be done. But if you've already loaded a record that exists and you want to save the changes that you made, just saving that data file back to or that data back to the data file won't do everything you need, because then you'll have 2 copies of that record. So this next little bit of code solves that, and we have an either operation based on the flag, that F variable we sent. So if the F variable is set to yes, it runs the Z block of code, which removes the data from the data file. So basically, if you've edited this file, we want to first of all save the record back, and then we want to delete the old record, the same old record. if that flag is set to no, then we just run the end block of code, which clears the screen. And notice, remember, in the Z block of code, we are also running the end. So in either case, it's gonna run that end block of code, and the screen will be cleared. We have a load button here, which does the Y block of code, which loads and displays the data from the selected data from the D file. Then we have a delete button, which has the text delete, and then it has right-click in parentheses. So notice here, just to make this a little safer, I have two actions on that button. The first action contains nothing. That first little action block does nothing. So if you click on the button, it does nothing at all. And the second action block is what happens when you right-click on the button, and that does the actual deleting. And there's another button here, which you probably wouldn't include in an actual user interface, but a button that says raw, and that lets you edit the raw data in the D file. That brings up Rebol's editor, and so you can save and load the data sort of manually. Okay, so we run this. You see we get the three fields with name, phone, and notes. We can save that data, and you see it clears. And if we load, you'll see now I have some data in here. By default, if I bring up this name and I want to delete that, hold down on the right click button, that'll delete the record. So when I load the list again, it's gone. If I want to edit the data, when I save that now, remember it goes through this little operation here. Now since that data has been altered, it's doing the deleting of the previous record. So now we only have, again, one record for his name, and the changes have been saved. So the process of creating that altered record was to save the changes and delete the previous old record. Just type in some random text here, and you can see every time I bring it up, again, there's bits of text have been saved with alteration. And if we click on the raw data, you can see this data file, and that's how simply this is represented. All those mold functions create a quoted piece of data. The quotes around each item. Right, so Rebol is able to easily deal with the loading. The load function loads that into a data structure which we can manipulate easily. And there's no additional characters or formatting needed, no commas or no tabs or anything else that's required to separate the data. So that gives us all the basic functions needed for a CRUD app, a create, read, update, and delete application in we have here about 9 lines of code, actually 7 lines of code if we take out that last little bracket and the header. With all of the error checking that we need to make sure, for example, if we had an empty data file and we tried to load it, we would get an error. If we tried to delete a record that is not existent, that can't happen. So there's a couple little attempts. The attempt functions help to ensure that the program doesn't crash if the user does something they shouldn't be doing. That's basically it. Really simple to create a system like this. Click on new. I'll just do some basic data entry. Our new record is saved. Now it's in the system. We can bring it back up. We can edit it. If we want, we can delete it. And we even have access to the raw data. So extremely simple. This is not obfuscated code, just 7 lines of really, really powerful code that let us do all the basics of data management for any kind of little database application.